Okay, great. Welcome back. It's 2:25, and what I'll do is I'll spend the next 5 minutes to just kind of cover how we have planned for the panel, and then we should officially start the panel at 2:30. So um, to kind of tell a story, I wanted to introduce the presenters from today, and then we kind of go over what Amanda, the executive director, and had in mind when we were planning the agenda, and how it tells a story related to COVID and remote studies. So you kind of heard from this morning from Cheryl related to COVID, the pandemic, and innovations. What are some of the new innovations areas in telemedicine, AI, and what are some of the challenges? Then it was followed by a regulatory perspective from Robert that talked about touching on his FDA experience, remote world evidence, and how that may affect some of the EUAs, et cetera, that he's going to give an example later in the panel. And you also heard from Fred more from a quality management system perspective related to how Health Canada is reacting to the interim orders. And then you heard a story related to the clinical statistical perspective from Joanne related to FDA consulting and industry. And lastly, you heard from Robin related to a company's perspective about challenges with bringing innovation, but also to build on Jack's question about reimbursement codes, et cetera. So based on that, we have kind of the presenters, and then I would like to introduce addition to the panel, which is Dr. Jessica Robin. She's also from industry, so we'll be able to hear about her experience from an industry perspective, but also related to remote trials. So let me just quickly go over her bio, and then we'll go over we'll continue on. So Dr. Robin, currently in her role at Winterlight Labs, she leads their clinical research program, including internal validation research, academic collaboration, and client projects. In this role, she oversees study design, data collection, design analysis plan, and help communicate the results of studies relating to how speech and language are affected in neurodegenerative disease and psychiatric disorders. Dr. Robin finished her training, PhD, and was a postdoc at Baycrest, where she did research that was related to Alzheimer's, to study early signs of cognitive impairment using methods including structural and functional neuroimaging, eye tracking, and cognitive testing. So that's our panel member, and I would really like to welcome them. And at this point, I invite all of the speakers to turn on their video and turn on their mics so that we're able to start the panel discussions. And just reminder to the audience, there's two ways to really ask questions. So you can either raise your hand or type in the comment section in order to ask your question. And what we're hoping for is that this will be a really interactive discussion. So I encourage the audience members to share their experience as well during COVID. And I will start the panel by sharing an anecdotal experience just from Hologic's perspective. And it's going to kind of provide that framework of how I'm planning to tease out different ideas from all of the panel members. So I joined Hologic about 1.5 years ago, and the COVID experience has been quite interesting for me. there's a lot of positives, and there's also areas that that were challenges that can be worked on. So the example that I give is when COVID hit, Hologic has a division that works on in vitro diagnostic devices. And we really rallied together to, in a short, few weeks, to develop COVID assays that received FDA emergency use authorization. And then after a month, we developed a second assay, and that really had a positive social impact by meeting the needs of testing, and also economic impact as well, because the stock is a 35-year all-time high right now. But it had a lot of challenges as well in terms of trying to do the work of otherwise it'll take months to bring that innovation that would otherwise take several months, do it in a few weeks. And some other challenges are what happens when the pandemic is over. We have a lot of assays that are currently on the market now, and we are collecting some real world evidence data, but what does it really mean when the pandemic is over from the FDA's perspective, and how can we keep those products on the market, because obviously there's still a screening need as well. And in addition, Hologic has many other products that maybe those product lines weren't so lucky from a COVID perspective. Some of those were in screening, some of those for cancer screening, for example, some of those are for surgeries. And those are areas where we see, from stats from Cheryl, from Robin, that procedures are down 50%. And how do we stay innovative in those areas? And some of that might be related to adding remote access, remote screening features to existing devices. And those are areas that we would like to continue to work on as well. So that's kind of personally my anecdotal experience from Hologic about reacting to COVID. And what I'm planning to do is using that as kind of the foundation to tell a story and tease out from the different panel members about their thoughts related to COVID, related to innovation, related to regulatory pathways, quality inspection implications, clinical studies, remote studies, real-world evidence, and also reimbursement and payment. So I'm going to kind of ask the first question, which we kind of talked about this. And the first question is really to Cheryl and Robin. And what are your impression of innovation during COVID? Did you see there were a lot more innovation? Did you see there were less innovation? Cheryl, maybe also just touch on we actually saw more mergers and acquisitions and exits in Q2 of 2020. That's a really positive thing. Maybe we could start there.
Thanks, Juan. I'll go first, Robin.
Yes, please.
Okay, so innovation during the pandemic. I think there were a lot of incremental sort of changes or shifts that people made, whether they already had a test that they adapted for COVID, or like I'm sure Robin spoke about their test that they modified to be a consumer or patient-centered